Your life has every rank in a North Korean drug lab. Rank 1, the cleaner. You are 17. You got this job because your uncle knew a man. And in this country, knowing a man is the difference between eating and not eating. Nobody told you what the building made. On your first day, the foreman handed you a bucket, a stiff brush, and a cloth mask so thin you can see your own fingers through it. And he told you that if you were smart, you would keep that mask on and your mouth shut. You thought he meant the dust. You did not yet understand that in this building, the dust is the product. Your job is the floors. You scrub the residue that falls from the tables. A fine crystalline powder that catches the light like sugar, like frost, like something that should be beautiful. Your knees are raw. Your hands crack and bleed at the knuckles, and the powder gets into the cracks. And your heart starts to race for no reason you can name. 8. At night you cannot sleep. You lie on your mat with your pulse hammering, and you think you are sick. You are not sick. You are being dosed, a little every day, through the skin of your ruined hands. And no one will ever tell you that, because to them you are not a person who can be poisoned. You are a mop that talks. Here is what you notice, down on the floor where nobody thinks you are listening. The chemists don't wear better masks than you. The guards cough the same wet cough. Everyone in this building is breathing the same air. And the air is slowly killing all of them, and every single one of them believes they are the exception. The man above you thinks he is safe because he stands 1 meter further from the table. That 1 meter is the only religion he has. You are the cleaner. You see everything, and you count for nothing. And that combination, invisible and observant, is the most dangerous thing a person can be inside a place like this. You just don't know it yet. Neither do they. You. Rank 2, the cook's hands. You survived long enough to be promoted, which in this building means you survived long enough to be useful in a more expensive way. Now you are a set of hands at the table. Not the cook, never the cook, but the hands the cook uses. You measure. You pour. You stir precursor chemicals in glass vessels that hiss and steam, and the fumes that come off them peel the inside of your nose and paint the back of your throat with something that tastes like batteries and bleach. You learn the recipe the way you learn a prayer, without understanding it because understanding is above your station. Ephedrine. Red phosphorus. Solvents whose names you are never given. You know the order of operations and the color the liquid is supposed to turn, and you know that if it turns the wrong color, the cook will scream, and someone will be blamed, and the someone is always the hands, never the head. This is the thing nobody outside understands about a place like this. The reason North Korean methamphetamine became famous for its purity was not cruelty for its own sake. It was that the state had real chemists, university-trained, disciplined, working in actual laboratories with actual equipment, and those chemists were ordered to make a product good enough to compete on a global market. The purity was a point of pride. Somewhere above you, a man in a clean shirt is proud of what your bleeding hands are making. He will put it in a report. He will call it an achievement of the nation. You pour, and you stir, and you count the days, and you notice you have stopped feeling hungry. You think this is a mercy. It is not. It is the drug, seeping into you through your lungs, switching off the part of your brain that begs for food so that you can work longer for less. Even your starvation has been optimized. Even your emptiness is a feature they designed. Rank 3, the chemist. Now you understand the recipe. Every step, every reaction, every reason. You went to a real university in the capital. You studied chemistry because you were brilliant and obedient. And in this country, brilliance without obedience is just a longer walk to the labor camp. You told yourself you would cure diseases. You imagined your name on something clean. Instead, your name is on a production quota, and the disease you spread is the one your own government sells. You are good at this. That is the horror of it. You are genuinely, provably good. Your batches test purer than the last chemists. You have refined the process. You have solved problems that stumped the men before you. And every improvement you make travels up the chain and comes back down as a higher quota, because in this system excellence is never rewarded with rest. Excellence is rewarded with more. You made it better. So now you must make more of it, and the making of more is what will eventually kill you. You tell yourself a story to sleep at night. You tell yourself you have no choice, and this is almost true, and the almost is the part that rots you from the inside, because you have seen the other chemists who stopped being useful. You know where they went. You know that the only thing standing between you and that place is the quality of the poison you produce. So you produce it. You make it beautiful. You make it lethal. And you hate the part of yourself that is still, after everything, proud of the work. Here is what you know that the cleaner does not. You know that in the 1990s, when the famine came, and hundreds of thousands of your countrymen starved in silence, the state did not stop making this. It expanded it. When the economy collapsed and there was no legitimate export left that the world would buy, The government leaned harder on the things the world would buy in the dark. You are not a criminal operating against your state. You are an employee operating on its behalf. The lab has a budget line. That is the part you can never say out loud. Not even to yourself, most days. Rank 4. The foreman. You don't touch the chemicals anymore. You touch the people. You are the foreman now, which means you are the softest and the cruelest job in the building at the same time. Because your entire function is to convert human beings into output and to absorb the blame when the humans break. You decide who scrubs the floor and who stirs the vessel. You decide who gets the mask that still works and who gets the one you can see through. You decide in 100 small ways every single day who lives a little longer and who is used a little faster, and you tell yourself these decisions are not really yours, because a quota came down from above and you are only distributing its weight. But the cleaner on her knees does not see the quota, she sees you. To her, you are the face of the entire machine. You are the God who assigns the suffering. You have learned to stop looking at the new ones too closely. You did that once. You learned a boy's name, learned about his sister, and then the quota came and you had to put him at the table where the fumes were worst. And he was gone in 4 months, and you carried his name around in your chest like a stone. So now you do not learn names, you number them. It is easier to spend a number than a boy. This is the first real corruption of power. Not that it makes you cruel, but that it makes cruelty efficient and then makes efficiency feel like kindness. I am protecting myself, you say. I have no choice, you say. Everyone in this building says it. It is the national anthem no one sings aloud. And yet, late at night, when you sign the day's tally, you notice your own hand shaking, and you cannot tell anymore whether it is the fear or the fumes. You have been in this building for 11 years. You are breathing what they breathe. The 1 meter of distance you thought protected you was always a lie. The machine does not care what rank you reach before it takes you. It is just slower with the ones who are useful. Slower is not the same as safe. Rank 5, the driver. You move it. That is your whole existence now. You are the artery, the thing that carries what the building makes out into the dark and brings back what the building needs to keep making it. You drive a truck with a false floor and papers that say you are carrying fertilizer, or seafood or machine parts, and you have learned to say those words to a checkpoint guard with a face so flat and bored that no one has ever once looked twice. You are good at being boring. In this work, boring is the highest skill there is. You know the roads that have no names. You know which border guards can be paid and which will shoot to prove a point to the guard beside them. You know the weight of a shipment by how the truck sits on its springs. And you know that the weight you carry in a single night is worth more than you will earn in your entire life, and that if a single gram of it goes missing, you will be the one they open up looking for it. You are trusted with a fortune precisely because you own nothing and can be erased without a ripple. Your poverty is your security clearance. Here is what the road teaches you that the factory floor cannot. You have seen where it goes. You have handed crates to men who speak Chinese and men who speak languages you cannot place, on riverbanks at 3 in the morning, and you understand in your body, not as a theory, but as a fact you have touched with your hands, that this is not a local sickness. What your country makes in one nameless building crosses rivers and oceans, and ends up in veins and lungs on the other side of the world. You are one link in a chain that starts with a 17-year-old scrubbing a floor, and ends with a stranger dying in a city you will never see. You have driven the whole middle of that chain, alone, in the dark, and you have never once been allowed to stop and think about the two ends. And you breathe it too. It rides in the cab with you, seeping out of its wrapping, filling the small sealed space where you spend your nights. And your hands have started to tremble on the wheel on the long straight stretches where there is nothing to do but feel your own heart. You tell yourself it is the coffee. It is not the coffee. The machine found a way to poison even the man who only carries the poison and never opens the box. There is no job in this chain that keeps your hands clean. There is only the illusion of distance, sold at every rank, believed at every rank, and true at none. Rank 6. The security officer. You carry a weapon and a title, and the right to be afraid of fewer people than everyone below you. You are state security. You were placed in this building not to protect the workers, but to protect the secret, and to make sure that what is made here goes only where the state wants it to go, and nowhere else. You watch the chemists for signs they are skimming. You watch the foreman for signs he is soft. You watch the trucks that come in the dark and leave heavier, and you make sure no gram walks off in a pocket that the plan did not authorize. You believed when you started that you were on the clean side of this, the side that watches, not the side that's watched. It took you 2 years to understand there is no clean side, because you have seen what comes up from the province now. When the central supply chains broke down, the recipe got out. Ordinary people, teachers, farmers, out-of-work miners, started cooking it themselves in kitchens and back rooms, because it was the one export a starving citizen could still produce and sell to survive. The thing your state built in disciplined laboratories escaped into the bloodstream of the whole country. And now your own people use it. Not just to sell, to endure. They take it to work longer, to feel less hunger, to survive a winter with no coal. And a whole generation is quietly hollowing itself out on the thing you were assigned to guard. You raided a house last month, found a grandmother cooking a batch on a cook stove to feed 3 grandchildren whose parents were gone. She was not a cartel. She was not an enemy of the state. She was a citizen doing the only math the state had left her. And you had to decide, standing in that kitchen with your title and your weapon, whether the law you serve had anything left inside it worth serving. You did your job. You always do your job. That is exactly the problem, and you are old enough now to know it. The distance between you and the cleaner was supposed to be enormous. A weapon, a uniform, the power to knock down a door. But you are breathing the same national air she is, the same poison, just delivered through a different vein. Hers comes through her hands. Yours comes through your conscience. Both of you are being hollowed out by the same machine. You just get a better chair while it happens. Rank 7, the director. You run the building. Your name is on the paper that says it exists. Not the real name of what it does, but the cover name, the fertilizer plant, the pharmaceutical facility, the ordinary lie printed on ordinary letterhead. You have never scrubbed a floor. You have never stirred a vessel. You have never knocked down a door. You have only ever signed, and the signing has made you responsible for all of it and stained by none of it, which is the exact trick that every director in every system like this has always relied on. You know the numbers. You know how much comes out of this building in a year and roughly what it is worth in the currencies your country is not supposed to be able to touch. You know that the money does not stay here. It goes up. It goes into the accounts that keep the very top of the state afloat, the leadership's private economy, the parallel treasury that exists to fund the things the official budget cannot admit to buying. You are not running a drug lab. You are running a revenue stream for the survival of a regime. And the drug is simply the most efficient product a poor and sanctioned country could manufacture with the talent it had on hand. You tell yourself the largest story of all, because you have the largest position and the largest thing to justify. You tell yourself this is patriotism, that in a hostile world, cut off and encircled, a nation does what it must to survive, and survival is not a crime, and the suffering in the lower floors of your own building is a cost the nation pays for its independence. You have said these words so many times that you have almost stopped hearing them. Almost. There is still a thin voice, very deep down, that remembers you were once a young man who wanted to build something for your country, and did not imagine it would be this. And here's the thing you can never afford to look at directly. You are not safe either. You know what happens to directors who become inconvenient, who know too much, who are needed 1 year and dangerous the next. The higher you climbed, the more you learn, and everything you learned is a reason someone above you might one day decide you are a loose end. The cleaner could be spent because she was worthless. You could be erased because you are valuable. Opposite reasons. Identical fate. The machine consumes the bottom for having nothing, and consumes the top for knowing everything. And the only people it spares are the ones who have not yet reached either end. Rank 8, the one who signs the order. Now you are at the very top. Not the top of the building, the top of the chain the building answers to. You are in the capital, in a warm office, far from any fumer floor. You do not know the name of the cleaner. You do not know the name of the chemist. You do not know the name of the grandmother in the kitchen with 3 grandchildren. You know only totals, foreign currency earned, quotas met, targets for the next quarter. To you, the entire building, every raw knuckle, every stopped heartbeat, every hollowed out citizen is a single line in a ledger, and the line is black, and black is good. You are the one who decided the drug was worth more than the people. Not in a single dramatic moment, it is never a single moment, but in 1,000 quiet decisions to keep the line black. To expand production when the famine came, instead of surrendering the revenue. To let the recipe stay in circulation, because a population that poisons itself quietly is cheaper to rule than one that starves loudly. Every one of those decisions was reasonable from where you sit. That is the final and worst truth of this whole descent. From the top, cruelty always looks reasonable. It always looks like arithmetic. It always looks like there was no other choice, and the phrase, no other choice, is the sound a powerful man makes when he does not want to admit he chose. And you are the safest person in the entire story, and you are the most poisoned, and both of those are true at the same time. No fume will ever reach you. No door will be knocked down on you. But something has been eaten out of you that the cleaner still, somehow, possesses. She knew the person next to her was suffering, and it kept her awake. You engineered the suffering of an entire nation. And you sleep perfectly. And the ability to sleep perfectly is the deepest poisoning of all. The drug took the cleaner's body a little at a time. Power took your capacity to feel it, all at once, years ago, and you never even noticed the loss, because it did not race your heart or steal your hunger. It only made everyone below you into a number, and left you certain you were right. The thing they all share. 8 ranks, 1 building, and at every level, the same line in different costume. The cleaner says, I have no choice. The chemist says, I have no choice. The foreman, the driver, the officer, the director, the man in the warm office, every one of them says the same 4 words, and every one of them is a little more responsible and a little more comfortable than the one below. And every one of them is being consumed by the exact machine they believe they are operating. What? That was the real design of it, not the chemistry. The chemistry was almost the easy part. The real design was a system where no single person ever has to feel like the villain, where the cleaner is just surviving, and the chemist is just skilled, and the foreman is just distributing weight, and the officer is just following the law, and the director is just being patriotic, and the man at the top is just reading a ledger. Spread the responsibility across 8 ranks and become so thin that no one can feel it on their own hands. And a nation ends up poisoning itself while every single participant remains in his own private accounting. Innocent. This happened. A state built one of the purest methamphetamines in the world in real laboratories, sold it to survive its own collapse, and then watch, or chose not to watch, as the poison it manufactured seeped back into its own people, until they were cooking it in their own kitchens just to make it through the winter. The details are documented. The purity was real. The starvation was real. The revenue was real. The only thing that was ever invented was the innocence. The story each rank told itself so that the machine could keep running on the fuel of people who all believed the fire belonged to someone else. You have now been every one of them. The mop that talks, and the hand at the ledger, and everything in between. So let me leave you with the only question that survives the descent. Not who was the monster. You met 8, and none of them thought they were. The question is quieter and worse. It is this. At which rank would you have stopped telling yourself you had no choice? Be honest. Because everyone watching this believes they would have stopped early. And a building exactly like this one, in more countries than yours, is fully staffed at every level right now. Staffed entirely by people who believe the same thing about themselves. Nobody in that building thought they were the poison. That is how the poison always wins.